there, friend. I have to admit something to you. I've done some things in my quilting life that might make the quilting police shake their heads in dismay. But you know what? I have zero regrets about those things. And I have a feeling that I'm not alone on this. Actually, I know I'm not alone on this because I talk to a lot of quilters. And today I'm going to be spilling my quilting confessions to you. And I'm going to spill 5 things that I've done that just might shock you. Welcome to the Loose Threads and Stitches podcast, where we chat all things quilting, creativity, and life. I am Kristen from ICStarsQuilting.com. And around here, we believe that quilting should be fun, it should be freeing, and never about following every single rule perfectly. So let's get into it. I bet at least one of these confessions is going to have you nodding right along with me. Confession number 1, I have started way more projects than I can handle at once. I'll admit to it. I have more quilt projects starting than I could possibly even imagine finishing in my lifetime. I have a to-do list that is 500 miles long of projects that would be cool to finish. But you know what? Can you blame me? There is always a new pattern. There is always some new technique or some new fabric that I just have to cut into. You know, I convince myself I will get to this someday. So I buy it and I put it aside. Instead of finishing what I started, well, I'm really excited about this thing now. So I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to do this instead because it excites me and I want to work on this. You know what? Do I feel guilty? Maybe a little bit, but do I plan to change my ways? Probably not. Starting projects is part of the thrill of the creativity process, and sometimes finishing it is overrated. Have I broken needles? Yes. Have I learned my lesson? Maybe. You know, sometimes I sew really, really fast, and sometimes it happens, and you know, let's be real. Sometimes we just want to keep going and not slow down when we get really excited about it. And you just take your chances and you go with it, right? You do what excites you. That's part of what creativity is. Okay, so here's my confession. I have bought cheap mystery fabric from a mystery fabric bin, and I thought this is going to be fine. It's gorgeous. I love the color. I am holding over it thinking it's not going to bleed. Spoiler alert, it was not fine. It did bleed. It was terrible, okay? And it was thin and it wore out way faster than I would have liked it to for the amount of work that I put into that project. And there is a difference between budget-friendly fabric and then there's fabric that feels like it was made from recycled plastic bags and, you know, just cheap fabric. It's so thin, it's mostly starch and not at all like cotton, right? And I learned the hard way that, you know, when I made this quilt top and I washed it, I watched the colors bleed into I guess what you could call a psychedelic mess in the washing machine. And even with the color catchers, it still bled everywhere. And, you know, lesson learned, fabric quality does matter, but sometimes we just have to learn from experience. And I do have videos on my channel where I took what I would consider an expensive quilting fabric, you know, fabric that is made more for multiple different uses. Okay. Like quilting fabric has a certain texture to it. It has a certain thread count. It has a different makeup than I would say fabric that is meant to be decorative or apparel or something like that. Right. So your quilting cottons are going to be sometimes more on the high end. If you go to a specific fabric shop, they're going to be a little bit more on the high end as far as pricing and stuff goes. Certainly not the highest price end, but they are going to be more on the high end than if you go to and I hate to rag on them all the time because they certainly have their place in the world. And I shop there myself and I get plenty of good, decent fabric from there. But Walmart fabric is definitely in a different class of fabric. It doesn't mean that the quality is so far less, but it is made a little bit differently, right? So I shop there all the time too. And I have this video on my channel where I made a quilt out of Walmart fabric. It's usually here in the bedroom with me or on the couch. It's probably on the couch right now. But I made a quilt out of the Walmart fabric and it was the Pioneer Woman line. And I loved that fabric and I really wanted to do a test on it. And I gotta tell you, that quilt has held up so well. Like, the colors in it have not bled. They're not going to bleed at this point because I've washed it so many times. Like, it didn't bleed. The fabric is not coming apart. It is so soft and I just love it. So fabric price doesn't necessarily have to be the only factor here. What I'm talking about when I say cheap fabric, I'm talking about fabric that is just made to be low quality. When you feel like, and this is another one that has its place, but like dollar store fabric that is very, very starchy. It's almost like stiff when you're using it. It's generally a lower thread count. Now, that fabric could be awesome to use on like a cosmetic bag or to use on a outside pocket for a purse or like a maybe a cute pillow or, something like that. It could be awesome for that and for many other craft purposes. But when it comes to quilting, if you're going to put in 10, 12, 15, 20 hours, whatever it is, based on the size quilt that you make, buy the better fabric quality, because if you put in that much effort, you want that quilt to last a long time. You don't want it to like start to give out like, 2 years after you've made it, even if it even makes it that long, right? So that's kind of the idea behind it, is not necessarily the price when I say cheap fabric, but the quality of the fabric. And that's just something that kind of comes with experience as well, is just knowing like when you're touching the different fabrics and stuff. Next time you go into the fabric store, go and touch something like Art Gallery versus like, what I talked about, like the dollar store fabric. Like, there's a definite difference in the way that those feel in between your fingers. So yeah, I've definitely learned my lesson with that one. Confession number 3 of mine is that I have a section of my room that is dedicated to UFOs that I know in my heart might possibly never get finished. Yeah, it's in my closet. It's a hidden bin of shame, shall we call it? We all have one. Sometimes some of us have 3. There are projects in there from years ago that I keep telling myself, maybe I'll get back to it because it was something that was really, really exciting at the time. And this is something else that we've talked about on this podcast before too, is, what to do with UFOs. But, and I've done a lot of cleaning out over the years, but those projects that are still in there are the ones that like I really, really want to finish one day. I have a couple t-shirt quilts in there and I have some memory things in there that I want to finish. But is it on my to-do list anytime soon? No. Will I ever finish it? Maybe. And you know what? That's okay. Not every project is meant to be finished. And some projects are just creative experiments. And if you have a drawer of unfinished projects or a closet or a room full of unfinished projects, I hereby release you from the quilt guilt that you have for those projects, because maybe they'll get finished and maybe their purpose in crossing your path in life is to inspire you and help you learn a skill that you then move on from. Okay, confession number 4 is I use my fabric scissors on paper. Okay, you can calm down now because I am just kidding. I'm totally messing with you. I would absolutely never, ever use my fabric scissors on paper. I have come close in some moments of like desperation, but I did use the wrong scissors in one of my videos once, and I did use paper scissors on fabric because it was in the moment and the paper scissors were like right here next to me, and I grabbed them and I used them on fabric, and yeah, it was a mistake. I made it on camera, and that's just how I live my life. Like, things aren't always perfect over here, right? So, but this little blip of a moment in my life that I didn't really even think anything of it, it completely changed things for me. What I would think is like no big deal, right? Like using the paper scissors on fabric for just one clip of a piece of fabric. I mean, like not even like the size of like a jelly roll it might have been, but a sweet quilting friend of mine saw it happen on video, and she she made sure that I never have that happen again. So instead of like scolding me and telling me like, Kristen, like honestly, you should know better, she did something so amazing, and she gifted me the most hardcore tailor scissors that I have ever seen in my life. Like, they are so professional, and let me tell you, these scissors are such a game changer. They glide through the fabric like butter. And every time I use them, I feel like such a professional. So yeah, I highly recommend those scissors. I will leave a link to those scissors down in the description box underneath this episode so that you can go check those out, because they're really not like a bad investment either. But yeah, because I used the wrong scissors once, it led to one of the best quilting tools that I own. And since my my little scissor snafu secret is out, I have another confession that I want to share with you. I have definitely bought fabric with no plan whatsoever, just vibes. You know the feeling, you see it, you love it, and like you buy it with like zero clue of what you're going to do with it. Sometimes it's just a collection piece, but it's fine, because eventually inspiration will strike, right? And then maybe they'll still have more fabric if you need it at that time. But in my defense, and in defense of all of us quilters, like, the perfect fabric is right there, and sometimes convenience wins over like the golden rule of quilting. And the heart wants what the heart wants. Am I right? Like, that's how it comes to be. Confession number 5 is I have ripped out stitches and then just gave up on the project. Those moments when like you painstakingly rip out a mistake, but instead of feeling relief, you just feel over it. Yeah, I've been there many, many times. And sometimes a mistake takes all the wind out of your sails, and you just like put it down and walk away. Maybe you walk away for a day, maybe you walk away forever, and it becomes one of those projects that's sitting in your maybe someday UFO pile. But that's okay. Quilting should be fun, and it doesn't have to be an endless cycle of fixing things, even though sometimes it definitely feels that way, right? So now it's your turn. I want you to tell me what your quilting confession is. And I want to know, like, have you sewn over pins? Do you have a secret stash of unfinished projects? Have you used your fabric scissors for non-fabric purposes? Drop me a comment and let me know, because I bet we could all have some quilting secrets to share, and I bet that we could all get a little bit of a laugh in the comment section down below, because it is so nice to feel not alone in like the little mishap moments of the quilting journey, right? I hope that this chat today made you smile and reminded you that quilting isn't just about perfection, it's about enjoying the process. So if you've ever broken a quilting rule, just know that you are in good company. And I am absolutely going to do an entire episode dedicated to the quilting police soon. I don't have that one like ready for you just yet, but I'm absolutely going to do an entire episode dedicated to that too, because that's something that I hear quite often in the emails, is people who are stressed and don't want to disappoint those quilting police. We all know who they are. It's okay. So if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe or follow this podcast so you don't miss out on our next cozy quilting chat. I've got more fun topics coming your way, and I would love to have you along for the ride. Until next time, keep stitching, keep laughing, and most of all, keep creating. I'm Kristen with ICStarsQuilting.com. I'll see you soon. Bye.